I never expected that a night meant for renewal and natural wonder would also spark an unraveling of secrets that had long been hidden beneath the surface of my life. It was Earth Day, a day traditionally dedicated to celebrating our planet, its fragile beauty, and the unspoken promise of hope that nature brings. Over the years, my birthday and this day had woven themselves into the tapestry of my inner life, a time to silently vow that everything would be different, that I would live with meaning. Yet, that promise was about to be violated in a way I could have never foreseen. It was mid-afternoon when I learned of the upcoming meteor showers that were expected to dazzle every observer with streaks of light across the heavens. The celestial event, set to start on the night of Earth Day itself, filled the air with an unusual buzz of anticipation. Friends, colleagues, and even family members exchanged excited glances and hurried planning for a night spent beneath the stars. In the midst of all the preparations, my mind spiraled around thoughts of personal change, longing for a fresh start after years of navigating the complexities of a life that had grown stale with routine. Amid these thoughts lay the burden of a secret safeguarded by whispers and countless lies. I had spent the past few months in a delicate balancing act between the meticulously curated public persona of a dutiful wife and the inner, turbulent desire for freedom and passion. The double life, which I had convinced myself was merely a necessary escape from the mundane, was reaching its precipice as Earth Day approached. Every step I took was measured, every word carefully chosen, so as not to expose the hidden fissures in my identity. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Earlier that day, my husband had already sensed a change in me, though he refused to verbalize what he'd intuited. His eyes, once warm and inviting, now carried a subtle edge, a quiet storm brewing beneath that familiar warmth. It was not lost on him that I had been spending more time than usual alone, indulging in secretive meetings and hushed conversations away from his bewildered gaze. The memory of our promises, made in the earnest glow of early love, was dissolving in a fog of mistrust and ambiguity. I knew that tonight, beneath the meteor-lit sky, everything might be laid bare. I had arranged to meet my boss, Gregory, not long after dusk. Gregory was an enigma, a man whose charm was as potent as his ambition. Our meetings had usually been the kind that blurred the line between professional consultation and the allure of forbidden romance, but on this Earth Day, our rendezvous held an additional urgency. In conversation with him over moist, whispered confidences and stolen glances, I had begun to believe that perhaps this was the catalyst that would launch me into a new realm of passion. Caught up in the fervor of his magnetic presence, I found myself dismissing the gravity of my other commitments, dismissing the fuming silence of home waiting to be filled when I returned. It was not lost on me that my husband's unspoken suspicions had once again returned to life, swirling in the corners of my mind like smoke from a smoldering fire. But the night was young, a time for indulgence, a time for risk, and a time when the heavens themselves dared to join in this dance of fate. After a terse farewell to my husband, his eyes reflecting the pain of a betrayed trust that he could not yet articulate, I left for the reserved meeting place we had chosen. The cool evening air embraced me as I navigated the familiar streets that now held an air of foreboding. Gregory's car pulled up outside the secluded coastal restaurant that we had deemed our secret retreat. The establishment, known for its panoramic views of the ocean merging seamlessly with the starlit night, was the perfect hideaway from the prying eyes of the world. Inside, soft lighting and quiet lullabies of distant waves created an ambience of intimacy, and for a moment, I allowed myself to forget the volatile tension that simmered below the surface of my carefully constructed life. Gregory greeted me with a smile etched with equal parts longing and regret, a reflection of the risky liaison we had chosen to pursue. He gestured for me to sit at a table near the expansive windows, behind which the ocean and the celestial spectacle contended for ultimate beauty. As we clinked glasses filled with crisp wine, the conversation meandered from trivial topics to the profound intricacies of what it meant to be alive in a world dominated by cosmic wonder. The meteor showers had already begun, and the sky, as if eager to bear witness to our clandestine meeting, lit up with brilliant trails of light that cut through the darkness like shimmering dragons dancing on the edge of a cosmic abyss. For a fleeting moment, the intensity of the scene merged with the intensity of our emotions. Gregory's voice resonated with a captivating sincerity as he confessed his inner conflicts, his dreams, and the way in which he sought to escape the suffocating roles imposed on him by society. In his words, I found both danger and liberation, a tumultuous yet natural reflection of the inner chaos I had long repressed. It was as if the meteor showers were a metaphor. The celestial bodies, in their brief but stunning trajectories, reminded us of how rapidly things could change in a single burst of brilliance. I let his words wash over me, each syllable stoking the embers of desire and the yearning for a life where truth no longer came wrapped in layers of pretense. Our conversation was abruptly interrupted by an unexpected message on my phone. Instinctively, my hand trembled as I glanced at the screen, a message from my husband. The words were short and terse. "Where are you?" A chill raced through me, grounding me back into the reality I had tried so desperately to escape. For a long moment, I hesitated, caught between the allure of Gregory's world and the pull of a life I had sworn to live. The message was a reminder of the promises I had made and the inevitable reckoning that now loomed perilously close. I excused myself with a feigned urgency and stepped out onto the cool veranda. The ocean air felt heavier than usual, burdened by the weight of unspoken accusations that lurked in every ripple of the tide. I replied in brief, apologetic fashion, assuring him that everything was fine and that I would return home soon. But there was a tremor in my voice, a subtle note of defeat that spoke volumes of the internal storm raging within me. As I returned to my table, I found Gregory's eyes darkening with concern. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low and careful. I managed a weak smile, assuring him that I was merely caught off guard by my husband's message, a trivial interruption in an otherwise perfect evening. There was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Doubt is often the silent harbinger of inevitable implosion. As the night deepened and the meteor showers intensified, the restaurant's customers, if any were left, were few and far between. The quiet intimacy of that environment magnified every sound, the clink of silverware, the soft murmur of distant conversation, and the crash of the ocean waves below created a symphony of reminders that the natural world cared little for our human dramas. There was beauty in that truth, but also a stark reminder of how transient and fragile our constructed lives could be. Gregory's hand brushed mine across the table, a gentle affirmation of solidarity, a silent promise that we were in this together, even if only for a fleeting night. The improbable combination of meteors and guilt stirred a tempest of emotions within me. I could no longer ignore the dissonance in my heart as I sat there enveloped by the luminous display above and the oppressive darkness below. Memories of the early days of my marriage came unbidden to mind, the bright promises of trust and the sacred vows that had once bound us together. But those days were as long gone as the remnants of a past life, and here I was, lost in a web of deceit that led me further away from everything I had once known. The meteor showers, which began with such promise, now mirrored the chaos of my inner self, a barrage of brilliant sparks that concealed as quickly as they appeared, leaving behind only the cold, unyielding void of regret. The splendor overhead was interrupted only by the low hum of a sudden argument emanating from a distant table. I caught fleeting snippets of heated words, confused accusations, and denunciations of betrayal. Whatever misfortune had befallen those strangers, it reminded me of the delicate balance between love and hate, the thin line that separated trust and treachery. That reminder was like a mirror, reflecting the inner turmoil of my current predicament. Gregory's grip on my hand tightened, and I wondered if the man before me was seeing in me not only a woman caught in forbidden passion, but also someone desperate for redemption, someone who craved an escape from the golden prison of her own making. I excused myself again, citing a need for air, and stepped outside onto the balcony. The silent embrace of the night, punctuated by the dazzling sparks raining from the sky, forced me to confront the duality of my life. I was a woman who had fallen for the glittering promise of freedom and rebellion, someone who had chosen to court disaster by betraying the one person who had trusted me with their heart. As I stood there, the cool breeze tugged playfully at my hair, whispering secrets of far-off galaxies, while the cosmos above performed its own symphony of light and shadow. The convergence of nature and destiny was both humbling and terrifying, a reminder that even in our most carefully constructed lives, the unpredictable can shatter us completely. At that moment, the weight of my decisions made itself painfully clear. I thought of my husband, his quiet dignity, the unconditional love he'd once promised me in silence, and realized that his simple act of sending that one message had exposed a wound I could no longer conceal. Had he known? Had he seen the truth that had been hidden within my heart for so long? The questions began to churn, relentless and unforgiving, as I stared into the cosmos, seeking some divine explanation among the falling stars. The meteor showers were no longer symbols of wonder, but violent interruptions that magnified the fragility of every promise. It wasn't long before my reverie was abruptly shattered. The restaurant's front doors burst open, and a figure in a dark coat hurried inside. I recognized him instantly from the blurred word on the message, a grim, determined look that belied years of pent-up questions. My husband stood there, his eyes no longer the gentle pools of affection I remembered, but hard, sharp, filled with a turbulent mix of hurt and resolve. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath as time slowed to a crawl. His arrival carved a jagged path through the tenuous hope I had carried all evening, and I knew then that the carefully assembled facade of my double life was about to crumble like the brittle remains of an old illusion. My heart pounded like the distant roar of the ocean waves as I slowly stood up, the enormity of the moment pressing me down like the weight of 1,000 secrets. Gregory tried to intercept, his protective instinct overcoming his own remorseful passion, but my husband's steps cut short any chance for mediation. His eyes, glistening with unshed tears and barely contained fury, met mine with an intensity that seemed to strip away every layer of pretense. "How could you?" he asked, his voice trembling with the strain of years of silence, finally merging with the unbearable truth. The sound of his accusation was like a death knell, a final confirmation that the trust we once treasured was irrevocably shattered. I fumbled for words, paralyzed by the force of his gaze. In that raw instant, the meteor showers burning above seemed to echo the disintegration of my carefully wrought illusions. There was no graceful explanation, no clever retort that could mask the truth in any comfortable cloak of politeness. I felt exposed, reduced to a trembling shard of regret amid the unforgiving brilliance of nature, and there was nothing left to do but accept the inevitable. He was now bearing witness to my betrayal. My boss, Gregory, stepped forward, his tone a mix of contrition and defiance, questioning with quiet intensity whether there had ever been any room in my world for both honesty and secret passion. It was a question that struck me deep, forcing me to reassess every treacherous choice that led me to this merciless juncture. The ensuing moments blurred into a chaotic mosaic of frantic dialogue and raw emotion, each word a lash that further dismembered what little remained of our once shared life. I watched, detached and anguished, as the man I had promised to stand by in sickness and health was reduced to a wreck of shattered dreams and profound disillusionment. His eyes, once luminous with hope, now flickered with the cold certainty that trust, once squandered, could never be reclaimed. I tried to muster an apology, a plea for understanding, for forgiveness, but my voice came out fractured and incoherent, barely audible over the rumbling crescendo of the meteor storms above. The restaurant fell into an uneasy hush as every gaze turned toward us, and I could almost sense the collective heartbeat of those around us, joined in silent witness to the unraveling of a human tragedy. In that charged atmosphere, time stretched as long as the endless night sky, and every word seemed to echo in slow, agonizing repetition. "I'm sorry," I managed, choking on the syllables. But my husband only stared with broken eyes, the deep wounds of betrayal far beyond what simple words could heal. Outside in the cool, sprawling expanse of the Earth day-night, nature continued its indifferent celebration. The meteors, undeterred by the human tumult below, continued to blaze brilliant arcs across the heavens. Each streak of light reminded us of how insignificant our darkness can be compared to the grandeur of the universe, yet also of how rapidly a moment of beauty can be eclipsed by the tragedy of our lives. Gregory stepped back, his role now that of an interloper forced into the narrative of our mutual despair. His presence, once a promise of escape, now underscored the inexorable consequences of choices made in fleeting passion. My husband turned his back momentarily and walked toward the open door, as if his silence demanded that I face the consequences of my actions without any further interference. I tried to reach out, to call him back with words plucked straight from the remnants of an apology, but he did not pause. That final departure, his retreat from the table and from me, felt like a void swallowing all that was left of what had once been love. The sound of his steps receded into the night, leaving me isolated with only regret and the relentless, indifferent light of the meteor showers. The rest of the night merged into a surreal panorama of bitter remorse and grim acceptance. In the solitude of an uncomfortably cold home under the dwindling glow of street lamps, I sat alone with my thoughts, haunted by the echoes of every shattered promise and every whispered secret. The meteor showers, which had once held the promise of a radiant future, now served as a melancholic reminder of everything that had been lost. I felt as though I was caught in an inescapable loop of guilt and longing, each passing moment eroding the remnants of my self-respect and leaving behind only a hollow shell of regret. In the days that followed, I was forced to reckon with the irreversible consequences of that fateful Earth Day night. The once comforting rhythms of daily life had been irreparably disrupted, each sunrise carrying with it the heavy burden of remorse and self-recrimination. The meteor showers had ended, leaving behind only indelible scars on my soul and a stark realization that the cosmos, in its vast impassivity, somehow paralleled the timeless cycle of human frailty and failure. Shadows of my past, of wrong choices and shattered dreams, haunted every corner of my home. The silence of empty rooms echoed with the unspoken grief of a love that could never be fully salvaged, and the quiet spaces between heartbeats seemed to stretch into endless confessions of regret. Gregory, too, became an unwilling intruder in the final chapters of my shattered life. Our clandestine meetings had ceased, and he retreated into the shadows of his own life, a quiet penance for the fervor we had once shared in the fleeting moments under the meteor-lit sky. With time, it became clear that our encounter was less about a quest for freedom and more about desperately trying to outrun the consequences of hidden truths. Each recollection of that Earth Day night brought with it a surge of guilt, mixed with a deep knowledge that no amount of time or distraction could ever erase the profound betrayal that had set everything in motion. Slowly, my husband began to rebuild his shattered world, each day measured in cautious steps toward a future where trust might someday be restored. I, on the other hand, was left to reconcile the painful duality of my existence, the yearning for something radical and transformative, and the inevitable consequences of betrayal. The remorse was like a constant, unyielding presence, shadowing every attempt to find solace or forgiveness. There were long, introspective nights when I would lie awake, staring blankly at the ceiling, haunted by visions of meteors blazing across a dark sky, a ceaseless reminder of that singular night when everything fell apart. As the seasons changed and Earth Day came around once more, the universe seemed to offer a delicate, almost imperceptible hint of renewal. In the quiet moments of reflection, I recognized that the cosmic dance of light and darkness was no different from the human experience, the interplay of brilliance and despair, of beauty and loss. The memory of that fateful night has since become a permanent mark upon my soul, a constant reminder that every act, no matter how small or hidden, has consequences that ripple outward, irrevocably altering the fabric of our lives. Many years have passed since that devastating night, and each Earth Day now arrives with a solemn acknowledgement of the sacrifices and betrayals that have shaped us. The meteor showers continue to illuminate the sky, their ephemeral splendor as unpredictable as the fates that brought us all together one fateful evening. I have long learned that inside every glimmer of hope, there is the potential for sorrow, a reminder that in choosing to follow the path of forbidden passion, we risk losing the very essence of who we once were in the process. There remains a sliver of hope, however, buried beneath layers of regret and self-condemnation, a fragile desire to begin again, to somehow reclaim a life marred by betrayal and disappointment. I have slowly set about the arduous task of rebuilding, not just the shards of our fractured relationships, but also the fragmented pieces of my identity. In every act of reconciliation, with myself, with those I have hurt, and with the inevitable truth of my own human imperfection, I have found both a measure of comfort and a solemn acknowledgement that at times the cosmos must bear witness to our darkest moments to remind us of the light that follows.
On quiet evenings, when the night sky is clear and the first meteors begin their ancient waltz with the heavens, I allow myself to muse on the nature of betrayal and redemption. I wonder if the luminous fragments that streak across the dark bowels of space carry with them a message of forgiveness, a celestial promise that even the harshest betrayals can eventually yield a budding transformation in the wake of profound loss. In those moments of reflection, I recall the visage of my husband when he left that fateful night, the quiet dignity mixed with an unspoken sorrow that ultimately drove him to seek solace in solitude and self-repair. I also remember Gregory's earnest gaze, the one glimpse of vulnerability that punctuated his otherwise unwavering confidence, and I see in both of their eyes the struggle to come to terms with hearts wounded by the irreversible choices of the past. Now, each Earth Day serves as a bittersweet milestone, a reminder of what once was and what might have been. I often visit the small coastal park where I used to watch the meteor showers with a sense of detached nostalgia, mindful of the ruinous decisions that had led to that pivotal moment. In the gentle lapping of the tide and the delicate sparkle of stardust overhead, there is the quiet promise of renewal. Even as I acknowledge the suffering I have caused, there remains an unyielding part of me that longs for forgiveness, for both the love I betrayed and the love that might someday return in a form I have yet to comprehend. It is said that every heartbreak leaves behind a trace, a scar that will never fully vanish from the tapestry of our lives. Mine is no different. Every recollection of that Earth Day night, every flash of a meteor, is interwoven with the story of a betrayal that unraveled the delicate threads of trust and love that once bound me so tightly to the man who once believed in me unreservedly. I now understand that the cosmos, in its infinite majesty, provides us with a mirror, a reflection of our own inner contradictions and the ephemeral nature of every pledge we make. And in that mirror, I see not only my own remorse but also the glint of possibility, the hope that the very forces of nature that wrought havoc on my relationships might also someday help me rebuild them, piece by piece. In the final analysis, whether the betrayal was a fault of fate or a misjudgment of the heart remains unclear. What is certain is that every meteor streak that crosses the sky is a testament to the transitory brilliance of our lives, a reminder that every warm embrace, every whispered promise, and every burst of passionate desire is ephemeral, like a meteor blazing briefly against the vastness of the night. In that luminous instant, we are given a glimpse of wonder before the fall, a fragile moment where the boundaries between truth and illusion blur into an indistinguishable haze. As I continue on this uncertain journey of redemption and self-forgiveness, I am constantly reminded of that irrevocable night, a night that will forever remain etched into the fabric of my being. It is a story of love and betrayal, of beauty and inevitable regret, and of the cosmic spectacle that unfolded as our lives were forever transformed under the relentless gaze of the meteor showers. And though the pain of that Earth Day betrayal still echoes in the quiet moments of the night, I have come to realize that it is within those very echoes that the seeds of renewal are sown, the seeds that, one day, may blossom into a second chance at life, hope, and perhaps even redemption. In the end, the expansive, indifferent night sky reminds us that every human heart is vulnerable to the forces of nature and fate. We cannot hide from the inevitable truths hidden within the brilliance of a meteor shower or the quiet anguish of a betrayed soul. It is within these fleeting glimpses of cosmic wonder that we come face to face with our own imperfections, a reminder that even in our most painful moments, the light of forgiveness and the hope of regeneration shines on. And so, on each Earth Day, as I stand beneath the celestial display of countless meteors, I whisper a quiet prayer for forgiveness, both for myself and for those who have been irreparably hurt. There is a solemn beauty in the shadows, a stark contrast to the dazzling bursts of starlight that cascade across the night. I acknowledge that the truth of what transpired that fateful Earth Day will forever haunt me, a reminder of the devastating cost of compromising one's integrity for a fleeting taste of forbidden passion. Yet, amid the sorrow and the lingering regret, there lies the possibility of transformation, a chance to reclaim the essence of who we once were, to seek redemption not in the eyes of others but in the quiet, enduring light within our own hearts. It is a slow, torturous journey, fraught with uncertainty and despair, but one that carries with it the potential for rebirth. I believe that even the most shattered soul can find solace in the arms of time and the gentle dawning of nature's forgiving embrace. And while I have no illusions that the events of that night could ever be undone or forgiven without sacrifice, I now understand that our lives are, in many ways, like the meteor showers that light the midnight sky, brilliant yet transient, marked by moments of undeniable beauty that fade into the quiet darkness of regret. The immense tapestry of the cosmos reminds us that every ending bears the promise of a new beginning, even if it is obscured by the weight of our mistakes. Now, as another Earth Day approaches and I prepare to step out under the endless vault of stars, I do so with a heavy heart and a cautious optimism that comes from having faced the abyss of my own failings. I have resolved to honor the memory of that shattering night by striving to become a better version of myself. To cherish truth and to value the fragile bonds of trust above the fleeting allure of reckless passion. In each meteor's fleeting brilliance, I search for a reminder that even in our darkest hours, the cosmos offers a glimmer of hope, a promise that one day, the wounds of betrayal may heal, and the cold remnants of lost love might transform into a radiant dawn of forgiveness. Under the infinite sky, where the meteor showers now serve as bittersweet verses in the ballad of human frailty, I find a measure of acceptance. I come to understand that the pain and regret that have defined my nights are not punishments, but rather the catalysts of transformation, mirrors reflecting the inherent complexity of our hearts. And though I may never fully escape the shadow of my past transgressions, each new day becomes a silent oath that I, too, can rise again, reborn from the conflagration of disillusionment, guided by the gentle light of truth that, even in our moments of darkness, promises the possibility of redemption. Thus, my story remains etched alongside those meteor trails, an indelible record of a woman who dared to embrace the dangerous allure of a secret affair on Earth Day, only to be confronted by the mighty forces of nature and consequence. And as I continue to traverse the long, winding road toward healing, I carry with me the haunting memory of that fateful night and the understanding that every heartbreak, like every meteor streak across the vast, starry sky, holds within it both a drama of loss and a quiet prelude to eventual rebirth. In the final reckoning, it is not the betrayal itself that defines us, but the choice we make in the aftermath of shattered dreams. May the brilliance of each meteor and the solemnity of every Earth Day remind us all that our lives, though fraught with imperfection, remain canvases upon which hope, forgiveness, and ultimately, renewal can be painted, even on the darkest of nights.